Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So last week, the Wall Street Journal had released results of a poll that they conducted. And the poll shows how Donald Trump is going to have a hard time pleasing all the factions within his coalition. So for those on the podcast, the Wall Street Journal's article that I have up right now is titled "Voters Want MAGA Light from Trump." So they wrote, quote, "Most want a tempered, less assertive set of policies than Trump promised in the most unbridled moments of his campaign. The appetite is for MAGA light rather than extra strength MAGA." In fact, the majority of these poll respondents are opposed to Trump's plans that he launched this week. And keep in mind, the Wall Street Journal is a conservative publication. It's owned by the Murdoch family, the same family that runs Fox News. So this isn't the findings of some liberal or progressive group. So here's what they found. 53% of respondents said they want Trump to make significant government changes. However, 60% of them oppose his campaign promise to replace thousands of nonpartisan civil servants with his loyalists. So you guys might remember he's planning on using something called, I think it's Schedule K or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of, of the breakfast cereal or whatever. But anyway, he is trying to just get rid of anybody and everybody who is not 100% faithful to him. That is his plan. And then 60% of these respondents also disagreed with Trump's plan to eliminate the Department of Education. Stay tuned for more on that because people really like it. Also, almost 70% or 75% said that undocumented immigrants should only be deported if they've been convicted of a crime. 75%. And 70% said they would protect undocumented immigrants from being deported if those people lived in the country, lived here in the US for a long time, and they have no criminal record. That's huge. 70%. You never get 75% of the country and poll respondents to agree on anything. Now, 64% disagree with Trump's promise to end birthright citizenship, which he tried to do this week. And as you probably have all heard, a court has already blocked that. So that's going to work its way up to the Supreme Court. So whoops, too late. He already did it. So yeah, not a popular thing. And then 57% of respondents opposed Trump's plan to pardon the January 6 convicts. That's a big whoopsie, right? I mean, that's a lot of people. 57%, almost, 6 out of every 10 people in the US oppose that idea, and he just did it. And these aren't outlier results, and we know this because there was another poll conducted. So this one was conducted by NPR, PBS, and Marist. It was a joint poll. They showed, their poll showed that Trump is still underwater in his favorability. Also, some of his biggest plans and promises, just like in the other poll, are not all that popular either. So in regard to Trump's favorability rating, he was at 44% in that NPR poll. Not terrible. In fact, it is one of his highest favorability ratings of all time, but his unfavorable rating is 49%. And the gender divide is still a huge factor. So 53% of the men view Trump positively, the men who were polled, obviously, whereas only 35% of the women who were polled feel positive about Trump. And it's really mind-blowing because the people who view him most favorably are the ones that he's going to screw over the most. White men without a college degree and people living in rural areas. They are the ones who have the most positive view of Trump, yet, it's at 65 and 57% respectively. But Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary, you guys, I don't know if you caught this, his name is Scott Bessent. He said in his confirmation hearing that he doesn't support the idea of raising the federal minimum wage, which is still at only $7.25 an hour. So keep in mind what that means. If you're working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, and you are making $7.25 an hour, you're making only $290 a week, and that's before taxes are taken out. So we're talking about an income of only $1,257 a month prior to taxes. And I looked it up. According to apartments.com, the average monthly rent in the US is $1,554. That's for a one-bedroom apartment. A two-bedroom is an average of over $1,800 a month. So the federal minimum wage doesn't even cover the cost of a one-bedroom apartment, let alone groceries. You've got gas, utilities, all of the insurances, car insurance, health, everything, medical copays, every other expense an average American has. But here's what Bessent had to say about Trump's tax cuts for the rich, which the Republicans, as you all know, rammed through in 2017. Check this out.
This is the single most important economic issue of the day. This is pass-fail. That if we do not fix these tax cuts, if we do not renew and extend, then we will be facing an economic calamity.
Now remember, that tax cut, that tax scam that they pushed through, more than 80% of the benefits went to the wealthiest Americans. He claimed that his corporate tax giveaway was going to benefit the workers, and he used that same old tired Republican line of, oh, trickle down, it's going to trickle down to the workers. Never, ever happens. What we saw, as we always see, is that a huge number of corporations used that extra money for corporate stock buybacks. That benefits their wealthy shareholders. That's it. It does nothing for the workers. And the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, they say if these tax cuts are extended, they're going to provide an average yearly tax cut for the top 1% of $60,000. They're going to have an extra $60,000 in their pockets. On an average, your average American, hardworking, middle class or working poor American is going to get only an extra $500 in the year. Not a month, $500 for the entire year. So that's the bottom 60% of income earners. So all of this is to say, Trump better tread lightly, because there are a lot of people who voted for him and they're expecting him to make their lives better. In this last poll that I mentioned, 44% of respondents said that they expect Trump to improve their family's finances. Yeah, 44% believe that almost half of the people in the poll believe that he's going to make their lives better. But, as we've all seen, even this week, he seems hell-bent on helping his wealthy donors instead. And a Fox News host already called him out for backpedaling on a lot of his promises when he was on the campaign trail. So check this out.
But you shouldn't deny the reality of the kind of outcomes that the Biden-Harris administration oversaw in the end. And these economic indicators, looking at the stock market, for instance, there's a reason that Donald Trump wants to try to take credit for these things. And there's also a reason that now Donald Trump, like in his Time interview, when he was Time Person of the Year, and rightfully so, admitted, oh, well, prices are really hard to get down. Or J.D. Vance with Shannon Bream over the weekend. We want to stabilize prices. Or Tom Homan to Republican Congress people saying, we need to be more reasonable about this deportation force, and we won't be able to get everybody out. They're backing off of the promises that they made to the American people because they know they're not going to be able to achieve them.
So that was Jessica Tarlov, who you guys may or may not know. She was like the resident lib over on Fox News that has to bring some reality to the conservatives over there. So yeah, he has already started backpedaling. His advisors, his spokespeople, they've started backpedaling. Now, what we're going to have to overcome, though, is the fact that Trump is throwing enough red meat to his base right now that they're probably not going to realize how he's screwing them over. But again, it's not going to go over well with the majority of Americans because they are not happy about that red meat, as you heard in these polls. So I have more examples too. When they polled for Trump's plan in this NPR poll about the mass deportations, the NPR respondents were evenly split. So it was 49 to 49%. 49 oppose, 49 support the plan. Although 79% of Republicans support it, of course, only 50% of independent voters support it. So that could really swing the sentiment against Trump depending on how it's carried out, who gets hurt by it. I mean, we're already seeing some signs that it's not going to go over well, and it's probably going to negatively impact grocery prices. I'll have more for that on that with you guys next week. But and then this next part was really interesting. So when they asked people about the pardons for January 6 convicts, it was not even close in this NPR poll. Only 35% of poll respondents were in favor of the pardons. Overall, 62% of those surveyed said that they oppose it. So again, you have in this poll more than 6 out of 10 Americans saying no, absolutely no across the board pardons. And yet that's exactly what he did. So I personally cannot wait to see focus groups on all of this. Even 30% of Republicans and 62% of independent voters said no, we do not agree with these across the board January 6 pardons. So the thing is, though, and this is what I find fascinating, these polling results are insane because, you have at least some of these respondents who voted for Trump. So this is like saying, okay, I'm going to marry you, and then I'm going to tell you, okay, now I want you to completely change who you are. I want you to tone down all of your obnoxious behaviors. I want you to be someone other than who you were when we were dating. That's what it's like. And the vast majority of respondents said, our priorities are education, healthcare, social safety net programs. Total opposite of what we're hearing. 60% of these people said protecting these specific programs is more important than cutting taxes or reducing the federal debt. So again, what were they thinking? What were some of these people thinking in voting for him? And, here's the rub with that and their priorities versus the reality and what Trump promised. The Friday night prior to Trump's inauguration, he announced his pick for Deputy Secretary of Education. The dumber than a bag of rocks part of his coalition totally went off on him. Trump made the announcement on his failing social media site, and his supporters replied with comments like, quote, "Why are we staffing this department up? You need to dismantle the education department." Another person said, quote, "You promised to shut down the Department of Education. Don't you dare start reneging." And then another person wrote, quote, "WTF, shut down the entire department." I mean, there are a lot more, but you get the idea. I mean, these people have no clue how the government works. They have no idea how their children out in rural America are benefiting from the federal system. They are completely unaware of how much blue states, the ones that they hate and love to talk shit about, are bailing their asses out year after year. But for federal tax dollars from the likes of New York and Illinois and California and all those other blue states that they hate, their kids probably wouldn't even have school books. So, like I said, he is going to be pulled in two different directions because there's the ignorant part of his his coalition that has no clue, is not paying attention. They're the ones that just want to burn everything down. They just think that government sucks in general and let's just get rid of it all. They never think 2 steps ahead of like, what does that actually mean for my life, my children, my grandchildren? So, but like I said before, many times, I hope they get everything they want. I really do. When they finally feel the consequences of their actions, then maybe they will wake up to reality. And as the Wall Street Journal opinion writer said, quote, Mr. Trump has political running room, though it's not unlimited. His victory was solid, but no landslide. Half the country still dislikes him. And the GOP majority in the House is so narrow that a couple of willful members can kill anything. Mr. Trump could quickly find himself in trouble if he exceeds his mandate from voters. The question is, for me, we should all be asking, which voters, right? Which voters are they referring to? Because they're not all on the same page. And we all know when it comes to anything that causes harm to Trump himself or his wealthy donors, he's going to tank it, even if it's good for his base, even if it's good for average Americans. That's why we saw Trump ditch Biden's plan to lower prescription drug costs, right? So we're never going to see positive changes to healthcare or anything else that we would want. I would bet money on that. But when it comes to something like the education department, the only changes he might make are to benefit the wealthy and the religious factions in his coalition. Other than that, he doesn't care. He truly does not care. Unless it builds up his ego or his bank account, he does not care. So anyway, stay tuned. I will keep you all posted on everything going on. But yeah, I thought these polls were very, very intriguing and very instructive of how it might go in the short term and what we might see in the midterms if Trump really steps in it, which I fully anticipate that he's going to do. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.